Hello everyone, my name is Kai and I will be starting off our presentation today. Today our group will presenting on logic. So first of all, what exactly is logic? Logic is the study of reasoning and thinking clearly. In simple terms, it's about how we think, judge information, and decide what is true or false. We use logic every day, especially when we scroll through social media and decide what to believe. So why is logic important? There are four main reasons. First is it improves our critical thinking and help us solve problems more effectively. Second is develop our ability to break down complex information. Third is help us build strong and convincing arguments. And finally, it helps us express our idea clearly and avoid common mistake in reasoning, known as fallacies. These skills are important not only in academics but also in real life. With it, I will pass it over to my teammates who will explain more about the significance of logic and its different types.
Today, I'd like to talk about the significance of learning logic. First of all, logic is the study of reasoning and clear thinking. Many people think logic is only for mathematicians or philosophers, but actually, it's closely connected to our daily life. Learning logic is really important for us, and I want to share four main points. The first one is enhancing critical thinking. Logic helps us think more clearly, analyze problems carefully, and solve them effectively. In a world full of information, we can judge what is true and what is not, instead of accepting everything blindly. Second, learning logic improves our argumentation skills. It teaches us how to build strong, reasonable arguments, whether we are communicating with others, waiting an essay, or joining a debate. Logic makes our words more persuasive and convincing. Third, logic helps us develop strong analytical abilities. It allows us to break down complex information into simple, clear parts. This skill is useful in study, work, and almost every field, making difficult things easier to understand. Finally, logic promotes clear impressions. When we understand logical structures, we can express our ideas directly and correctly. We also avoid logical mistakes, so our thoughts can be easily understood by others. This is extremely important in both academic and professional life.
Now, I will introduce the main categories of logic. There are three major types: formal logic, informal logic, and symbolic logic. First, formal logic focuses on the structure of arguments. It checks whether the reasoning is valid, no matter what the content is. Second, informal logic is about real-life arguments. It looks at how people think, discuss, and sometimes make mistakes in reasoning. Third, symbolic logic uses symbols and formal language. This helps us analyze arguments more clearly and precisely. In short, these three types help us understand logic from different perspectives, including structure, real-life use, and precise analysis. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Sunhua Yi. Now that we understand the broad category of logic, let's look at how we actually apply it in our minds. There are four main types of reasoning: deductive, inductive, abductive, and heuristic. I will walk you through the first two, and my partner will cover the rest. Okay, let's ne- let's start. Uh, let's start with deductive reasoning. This is a top-down approach. It moves from a general rule to a specific conclusion. The beauty of deductive reasoning is that if your starting points are true, your conclusion is absolutely certain. Well, for example, let's look at the screen. All humans will die. Ellie is a human, so Ellie will die. There is no guessing here. It is a generated outcome. Next, we have inductive reasoning. This works in the exact opposite direction, as our comparison table will show later. It moves from specific observations to a general conclusion, instead of starting with a rule. You start with patterns because we are generalizing from specific examples. The conclusion is not 100% certain, but it is highly probable. We use this all the time in science and data analysis. So deductive reasoning gives us certain, while inductive reasoning gives us probability. To explain the next two types, abductive and heuristic reasoning, I will now pass the floor to Liao. Thank you.
Thank you, Huayi. Hello, everyone. I will introduce the remaining two types of reasoning. The third type is abductive reasoning. Think of this as being a detective. It is a process of finding the best possible explanation for an observation. For example, imagine you step outside and see that its ground is wet. You didn't see it raining, but based on the evidence, it rained. Its most likely explanation. Is it 100% true? Not necessary. Maybe someone just washed this car or used a sprinkler. But abductive reasoning gives us most logical best guess. And next, we have the heuristic reason. This is basically a mental shortcut. It's a quick way of thinking based on our past experience, and it doesn't follow strict logical rules. A perfect example is trying to log into the old account when you've forgotten the password. You might try 123456 or your pet name, your phone number. You are using experience based on guessing. Heuristics helps us make very fast decisions, but as we all know, they are uncertain and not always accurate. So to summarize, our reasoning steps is deductive gives us proof, inductive gives us predictions, abductive gives us explanations, and the heuristics give us quick experience based on choice. But what happens when our reasoning goes wrong? To answer that, I will now pass the time to the next classmates.
Now we move on to logical fallacies. Logical fallacies are errors in reasoning that make arguments weak or misleading. For example, saying you are wrong because you are not a doctor is not a valid argument. This is because it attacks the person, not the argument itself. So understanding fallacies helps us think more clearly and avoid being misled. Next, we will look at a summary of key logic concepts. This table compares the four types of reasoning. Deductive reasoning moves from general to specific and gives certain conclusions. Inductive reasoning moves from specific to general, but the result is only probable. Abductive reasoning focuses on finding the best explanation, Heuristic reasoning is fast and based on inferences, but not always accurate. So, each type has its own purpose and levels of certainty. Now, let's look at some common logical fallacies. First, ad hominem fallacy attacks the person instead of argument. Second, appeal to authority means believing something just because an expert or celebrity says it. Third, strawman fallacy misrepresents someone's argument. These fallacies are very common in debates and social media. There are also more types of fallacies. Slippery slope assumes a small step will lead to extreme results. Appeal to ignorance claims something is true just because it hasn't been proven false. False dilemma only gives two choices when more options actually exist. Understanding this helps us avoid wrong conclusions. Logic is not only theory, it is also used in real life. We use logic when evaluating social media content. We also use it when making decisions and solving problems. For example, not all information online is true, so we must think critically before believing it. To summarize, logic helps us think clearly and make better decisions. There are four main types of reasoning: deductive, inductive, abductive, and heuristic. Each type has different levels of certainty. We also learn about logical fallacies and how to avoid them. Using logic in daily life makes us more rational and thoughtful. Okay, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, we would be happy to answer.